ready, you can come.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our workshop, Before Marriage Master This. It's great to see you all here as we explore an important step in the next chapter of our lives. To start our program, we'll begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran. I'd like to invite Brother Muslim Hassan to please join us at the front. Can we get a loud salawat?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله أما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانهر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you so much, Brother Muslim, for that beautiful recitation. Can I please get one more loud salawat? Before we begin today, just a few quick housekeeping notes. Washrooms for the brothers are located on my left, and for the sisters around the back between the partition on the back side. I request you all to please keep your conversations to a minimum during the program, and we also request that phones stay away for the sake of focus and engagement. A reminder as well that Islamic attire is mandatory. At this time, we're honored to have Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hilli join us tonight. Sheikh holds a master's degree in pharmacy from the University of London and an MA in Islamic Studies from Middlesex University in the UK. He has and continues to study Hausa in both London and Najaf, and he also teaches Hausa studies at the Islamic College in London. Can we please welcome Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hilli tonight to impart on us some of his vast knowledge and lead us through tonight's workshop with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great honor for me to be here, and of course, having listened to me for an hour, I don't think you'd like to listen to me even more, because sometimes what happens is, I don't know if you've been in these situations, but I've been where, for example, you listen to someone so much that you start kind of listening to their voice is there in your ears, or you, God forbid, even see them in your dream. So it kind of happens when you're exposed to somebody over a period of time in many ways. But I wanted to maybe start the discussion rather than a lecture by asking a question, and I'd love to hear what the sisters and brothers say about it, and that's, what is the purpose of marriage? Yeah. To build a home, a whole relationship, a halal relationship, okay? To build, all started with H. So a halal relationship, okay? Sisters, what's the point of marriage? It's a simple question, but seems to be a challenging one. Sister right at the back, yes. What about the path of perfection? What happens to it? It's a means. What is the path of perfection? This is a question that will make us end up this session at 1 a.m. or something. It's going to take long. But what is the purpose of... Okay, so let's leave the path of perfection for a moment as to what it is, but it's a way to help us get there. What else? To procreate, so it is to increase society, to have children, for sure. Any other? Just to practice gender equality, ladies. What's the point of marriage? Yes? To build a partnership, so like a halal partnership. Yes? Business? Business partnership or just a... Right, yes. To develop patience, skill of reflect. Oh, marriage, you get married to someone so that you can reflect? Yes, you're absolutely right. One brother told me, I never understood patience until I got married. So that's understandable. That can be a reason. So why I mention this is because the first relationship in this existence was marriage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Adam and Hawa. The first thing, as far as human creation is concerned, was indeed marriage. And in nikah ceremonies, we hear the famous narration of Amir al-Mu'mineen, peace be upon him, that, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family says it also, "Man tazawwaja faqad ahraza nisfa deenah." Whoever marries has safeguarded half of the religion, so make sure they protect the other half. So I was hoping somebody cites that as the reason for marriage. In other words, I'm protecting my religion. Yes? Which is what the sister said, maybe it's a path to the ultimate goal of perfection. But what is interesting is that there's another narration that says, "Man tazawwaja faqad ahraza nisfa sa'ada." Anyone who marries gets half of happiness. And so, what is key to have an understanding at the beginning is it's a very intrinsic, very much godly driven process that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us to go through. But the idea here, for sure, if you look at the Quranic depiction of what a husband and wife to each other, one of the most beautiful verses that talk about marriage in the Quran is what a husband should be to the wife and what the wife should be to husband. هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنْ. What does the clothing signify for you and I? In addition to the fact that we choose it, it's also protection. Do you agree? But many times it's our identity. Many times it's who we are. So when the Quran says the husband and the wife are like garments for each other, it shapes a lot about what we envisage to be who we are in society. Now, this session is about getting ready personally. As an individual who wants to get married, what are we seeking to do as far as my own understanding of who I actually am? And the readiness in Islamic teachings is two things. Number one, physical readiness. Number two, mental readiness. Physical readiness is that you need to be at the age of bulugh, That is the fiqh. But also in the idea that physically you're able to, for example, as males, to make responsibility something that you take seriously. But the emphasis is also on what is known as rushd. Rushd is mental, spiritual preparation. And when it comes to this intellectual readiness, I think today we find a bit of a challenge, because there is a discussion that maybe one brother asked me yesterday, would I encourage 18-year-old boys and girls to get married here in Canada or in the UK or in the Western world? And it's an interesting question, because there is an argument that an 18-year-old in Iraq, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Africa, dare I say Dar es Salaam, is probably more mature than an 18-year-old in Vancouver. I won't say Toronto, you'll be upset with me. There's an argument there. Yes? Why? The circumstances, the way they're raised, the responsibilities that they take. And so what is interesting is there are a number of things that we need to look at in order to ask the question, am I ready intellectually, or am I mature enough for marriage? You might be thinking, yes, I am. But in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about what are the indicators and the signs that somebody's ready from that perspective, from the angle of maturity, from the Islamic rushd element. And essentially, it is partly to do with emotional adjustment. So when an individual moves from being a single person to a married person, the I becomes the we, and there has to be a focus on no longer what matters to me, it's what matters to us as two individuals coming together now. And there is this power to understand and communicate, which may not have been necessary when I was single. And there is this ability to appreciate, for example, the difference between males and females. This I'm very, very passionate about. To the extent anyone who is interested, and I'll plug this in, that I gave an entire majlis that raised a lot of eyebrows last year in Muharram, and the title of the majlis was, What Men Want Women to Know and What Women Want Men to Know. That's it. Got a lot of feedback about that, but that's fine. I like feedback. It's good, right? There was some generalization there, but I'm very passionate. Why? Because I see in the last 20 years of dealing with marital cases, a lot of the time boys getting married to girls, and they haven't got a clue how Allah has made females different to males. And I get complaints from a lot of people. They say, you know what? We're not having men marrying women. Boys marrying girls. One of the challenges is the lack of emotional maturity, which is partly due to the lack of knowledge of what makes males and females different. I'll give you an example. This example I love. I always give this example. A husband comes back from work. I know people say, oh, stereotypical woman at home. It's okay. She's at home. She's looking at, she's doing a great role at home. Maybe she's not in a position to work or whatever. He's come back and he looks at his wife and she's really upset. Now he can't remember upsetting her. He's like, I didn't say anything bad. Everything is okay. He comes to her and says to her, my dear, whatever, darling, whatever, is everything okay? As soon as he comes from home, she's like, yeah, everything's fine. But then she's like down. First problem, lack of understanding, emotional maturity. He says, okay, no problem. Maybe you need your own space. Let me know when you want to talk. First disaster. Yes? The ladies are nodding. The brothers are saying, what on earth is going on? Yes? So what happens there is that he's ignored her emotional needs. She's crying for help. The man, if he's a man, he understands this female is desperate for his attention. She wants him to really connect by saying, no. I'm not doing anything unless you tell me what's wrong. I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. But the man is thinking like a man. Why? Because the way males communicate is they want solution. So I come to a friend of mine who is male. I see him upset. Are you okay? If he says, I'm fine, then I know he doesn't want to talk. Then I move away. And if he tells me what's wrong, the first thing I'll say is, this is how you fix your problem. Because I know how to fix problems. Now, let's just say this husband decides to ask and probe his wife because he attended this particular session. And he then asks her, she said, I've had a horrible day. Number one, in the morning, when I first woke up, I get a message from my mom. She's upset with me because I didn't say happy birthday to her cousin yesterday. So she's really, she had to go at me on the WhatsApp message. Then I got a call at 10 a.m. Our son at school, he's had an accident and I had to go and pick him up. For example, he slipped, whatever, he's not well. When I came, I left house and I had the stuff cooking. I came, I saw everything burnt. Then I got really upset with the day that I've had. And the washing machine is not working. You haven't fixed it for a week or haven't done anything for a week. The male immediately thinks, I've got to get out of this situation. The male thinks that I need solution. So he looks at her and says, your mom, don't worry, ignore her. Number two, inshallah, our kid, if he needs any help, I'll take him to hospital. If not, give him rest. He doesn't need to go to school tomorrow. Number three, there's Uber Eats. Everything is fine. We'll order food. Number four, I promise you I'll fix the dishwasher. I'll get someone to fix the dishwasher. Nice, isn't it? Solution, everything ended. The boy has discovered how to speak with his wife. Disaster. Why? The wife is not looking for you to give solutions. She's looking for that empathy. She's looking for that understanding. What's the good model here? The good model is the husband will say to her, this must have been hard. Tell me how you feel. She will say, you care about how my feelings. So now he's an attentive listener. She begins to talk about her day and what she made him feel through. He will then not dismiss her concerns. He will then not just say, oh, you know what it is. No. He says, that must have been so hard. Yeah, I totally understand. No solutions yet. No solutions yet. The male brain is now in tune with the female emotion. And it works the other way around. I know you might say, no, Maulana, I'm different. I want him to fix the dishwasher. But that's not usually the case. There's a need to have that emotional connection and understand men and women different. Sisters and brothers, before we find the right partner, we need to become the right partner. Shall I repeat that? Most of us want to find the right partner, but we have to become the right partner for somebody else. How do I navigate this emotional maturity that Islamic teachings emphasize? Number one, I need to know myself. A lot of us, we don't know ourselves. Man arafa nafsah faqad arafa rabbah. Now, we have to recognize our own triggers. What upsets us? What makes us anxious? How do I deal with situations that trigger us? Who am I in these situations? Am I able to control my anger? Am I able to deal with the situations, for example? The Gottman Institute, for example, is a very well-known institute that I also did courses in. This Gottman Institute does couples therapy and so on. They said the emotional intelligence is a key indicator. If couples have that emotional intelligence, there is a key indicator on how they're able to handle conflicts and fights, and how they're able to fight right. Because couples will fight, hopefully not physically. But in terms of they'll have disagreements, it's natural. It's not about having the disagreements, it's about how you have those disagreements. So to be emotionally connected and mature really determines how you have those particular disagreements. Now, a good set of things for us to work on, because I believe in practical tips. I don't want to just mention these, but just to give a few thoughts that I had, is before marriage, in order to develop our own preparation, both spiritually, mentally, we are recommended to go on our own journey through connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Quran, through du'as, through the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam, so that we don't leave that to later on in life. So I should be going through my own journey to develop my own connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that will definitely help me in my marital relationship. Secondly, it's also good to have responsible financial management. Both sisters and brothers, they need to be able to look at how they spend their money. Debts, for example, how they deal with debts, how they're generally able to measure their expenditure, their budgets, and so on and so forth. Time management is key. For example, how disciplined are they? Do they oversleep? Do they spend too much time playing games, Netflix, binging, wasting time? Before you get married, look at your behaviors now. Because a lot of people want to fix themselves after marriage. But the problem is you don't have time. You need to fix yourself, or at least go in the process of fixing yourself before marriage. Why? So that you don't have those periods of time in marriage where you have a clash because that particular individual you're married to hates these hobbies and habits that you have, and you're going to have to go through a process where they're patient with you. Work on yourself now so that when you get married, these things are fixed, at least tried. Diet, your for example, what you eat, your habits as far as exercise, your personal hygiene. These things you may neglect, but are you ready from that perspective to have somebody else in your life? The only individual who's allowed to wash the body of a deceased without any covering of the body is a husband and wife for each other. No one else. That's it. Yes? Even parents, they cannot, other than covering of the private parts. Yes? So you're entering into a relationship where you're now, everything is exposed. You cannot hide anymore. So even your personal hygiene, your interactions, everything else, you have to work on this before, for example. Another key thing is mental health. Sisters and brothers, I deal with a lot of challenges of husband and wife. They're suffering because they carry unresolved trauma and mental health that was not dealt with before marriage, and they carry it on to marriage. And that creates so much pain and difficulty and challenges going forward. So, can you get help now? Can you deal with your own stress, anxiety in the best way? The biggest gift to give to your future partner, your prospective spouse, is to work on your mental health now. The best thing you could do. And not to ignore any issues you have now in the hope that they don't surface later, because those unfortunately make a big strain on the marriage. Now, I want to end with just a few indicators for brothers and sisters about healthy Islamic masculinity and healthy Islamic femininity. Why? Because we have toxic masculinity and we have toxic feminism. Not a favorite subject, I know. Hence, this discussion is not filmed and is not on YouTube. Today, we are presented with a very important challenge, and that is we want our brothers to approach marriage with the Islamic mindset of rujula and futuwa. These two terms are present in hadith literature, or they're indicated, and that is to be a man, to be understanding of what Islam says about what is healthy masculinity. For example, chapter 4, verse 34 says, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. Men are maintainers of women. Okay, chapter 4, verse 34. What does that mean? That means compassionate leadership and service, not dictatorship. Some sisters, what they complain is they say, when we get married, I don't feel that my husband's a man. I need someone to protect me and look after me. And sometimes, influenced by Western culture, some of our brothers are so laid back and so soft in their disposition. But you know what? It's okay, whatever you want. The female wants that male to be what? Not a dictator. Not someone who forces, oh no, it's my rule. Islam says this, I am in charge. No. But compassionately making decisions and being muscular in the healthy way. Yes? So, what does that mean? That means they take it upon themselves as a responsibility to provide, irrespective of the wife's financial status. A lot of setups these days, what they do is they, men and women, they get to meet each other, and then in the discussion they say, will you help out in the mortgage? will you also pay? But the husband will say to the prospective wife, will you also take part in the grocery shopping? Will you help out? That's nice. That's nice for the wife to do out of her goodness of her heart. But it's not wajib Islamically. Not wajib for her to do, even if she's the richest. But sometimes when she sees the husband working hard and maintaining as much as he possibly can, she will contribute. And if the marriage, there is an understanding of their laws and responsibilities, then things fall into place, because nobody wants their marriage to fail, right? So one of the things that is key as far as Islamic masculinity is concerned is for the brothers to make those tough decisions, which requires them to stand up and make those tough decisions. Culturally, we are told that men have to be like a rock. They shouldn't show any emotions. Do you agree? Don't ever cry as a male. Don't show that you're weak as a male, for example. When males, for example, show their nature, human nature, when they cry in Qabristan and they lost a loved one, people come to them and they say, it's not nice in front of people for men to necessarily cry. This is damaging. This is toxic. Why? Because then they will not be able to be emotionally present for their wives. They won't be able to connect with the wife who is desperate for that warmth and love and empathy and compassion. She wants it from the husband. And there are sometimes some sisters who didn't get it from their fathers. They want that male attention and love. And if they don't get it from the husband, guess where they're going to get it from? Social media. Other men who are not supposed to be in their lives, and then the problems start. I'm not getting it from my husband. Example. Love languages. How many here have done the love languages? Hands up. Allahu Akbar. Oh, Shabir is leaving and he said me. So the vast majority have not done love languages. I encourage you to do it before you get married. What is this love languages? This man, Gary Chapman, he's a reverend, but he devised this thing and it became very famous. This love languages is simply saying, today, now I'm speaking to you in a language you understand English. But if I was to start speaking to you, for example, in Spanish, how many would understand? Anyone speak Spanish? One brother at the back. Any sisters? I don't know Spanish anyway, by the way. Just saying. But you will not understand other than one brother. So he says there are many people who show love, but the partner, their husband or wife, doesn't understand that love because it's not the language that they understand. And he says there are 5 languages, 5 ways you can express love to each other. One is through quality time. One is words of affirmation. Yes. One is physical touch. One is acts of service. And one is gifts. Okay? And you need to do a test online to discover your own love language. So you tell the person who is your husband or wife how your primary love language is. By the way, all this is supported in Islamic teachings. Every single one of them is there, and I've done talks on them and whatever. But I'm an advocate. It's okay. Some people say, why are you using Western tools? It's okay to use them in marriage and to strengthen them. There's nothing wrong with that. Because you'll hear sometimes Maulana saying, only Hadith and Quran. Well, Hadith and Quran is the basis. But if there are tools out there that are not against Hadith and Quran, we use them. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes. One of them is this love language. For example, so a husband and wife maybe doesn't understand that her love language is words. Words means what? She feels loved when you continuously say, or he feels loved when a wife continuously praises him. There are people saying, no, I don't want to praise my wife. She gets too big-headed. I don't want to say to her, she's the best cook in the world. Brothers, say it for God's sake. It's okay. If her biryani is not amazing, say it's amazing. Oh, but then Maulana, I'm committing a sin. It's a lie. My mother's biryani is much better. She wants to hear that love. Constantly saying, I love you. Constantly admiring her looks. That's the thing. And the brothers absolutely love that respect. And some brothers say to me, I go to my wife. I said to her, I've had a really difficult moment in my work today. She's like, what happened? It's like this person started gossiping about me, and I went and said to them, how can you gossip about me? The husband is looking for the wife to say, oh, I'm so sorry, you have the right. And all of a sudden the wife says, No, you shouldn't have gone. Just let it go. Or stuff like that. And the husband's desperate for that wife to give that support, that respect. You deserve respect, she would say to him. She shouldn't have, or he shouldn't have said something like this about you. Oh, I have this project that I'm doing. And all of a sudden the wife is dismissive. No, you're not like that. You don't have the skills. You can't even, fix something at home, let alone this. She's dismissive of him, and so on and so forth. They don't understand each other, for example, their needs and whatever. I don't know how long I've been speaking, but I just want to quickly mention that an effective Islamic masculinity is when the husband is comforting, is a good listener, is empathetic, doesn't belittle, for example. These are examples given to us, for instance. And what about females? I am a person who is this close to giving a majlis in JCC about feminism and Islam, but I delayed it because I'm still wanting the majlis to be very, very strong, but I am very concerned by the influence of Western liberal feminism on our sisters. Very concerned. For example, I lead these courses back in London and online, and I continuously get sisters complaining, saying, what is this that Islamic law says a man who is a husband can have sexual intercourse or sexual relationship with his wife whenever he wishes, and she can't say no. This is agreed by Sunnis and Shias. It's a law in Islam. A husband, it's not ideal if she doesn't want to and he forces her. Or not forces her like, says to her, you must, and then she just gives in. But ideally, it's a process that involves emotional connection. Ideally. Let's say once she's not really interested and he really wants to because the need that he has is greater. Oh, but this is marital rape. Who uses this term? Feminists. Of course, he shouldn't be physically forcing her. It's not right. But she shouldn't reject either. So who is influencing who? Andrew Tate, although he's gone now, but he's still influencing some of the brothers. Toxic masculinity. And you have the feminism movement growing, questioning a lot. Oh, the hijab is dictated by men. Oh, this, that, the other, gender roles, all this. So, what does Islam say as healthy femininity? Imam Ali Salam, Imam Sadiq Ali Salam says that jihadul mar'a husnut taba'ul. The best thing a female could do is to be the best wife, a great wife, a compassionate wife, a wife that is supportive, a wife that respects, a wife that shows a lot of love and understands as much as possible the need to be loyal towards the husband when the going gets tough and doesn't become too pressuring towards him. For example, when the finances are hard, for instance. A wife who understands how the physical makeup of the male is. I could talk about these subjects for a long time, but I'll end on this. There is a very interesting book by a lady by the name of Barbara Doyle. And this book used to be called The Surrendered Wife. But the feminists pressured her, and she changed the latest editions, and she changed the title to the Empowered Wife. But I have the original one that called The Surrendered Wife. Imagine if I'd written this book. People would attack me. So what do you mean? A wife should surrender to her husband? Listen to what she says. Not Muslim, not Shia. She says, if a wife really understands what the husband wants and clocks it, the husband would really worship her. The husband doesn't need much stuff. For example, for him, physical intimacy is very important, but many a times is weaponized, she says, by the wife. It's weaponized. No, I'm not giving it unless you do this. I'm not doing it, for example, unless you do this. And so when the male doesn't get it, there's all these hormones, he gets frustrated and starts reacting in a particular way. Then there's a lot of friction, a lot of cracks start to appear in the marriage. For example, she suggests that many a times the wife gets too involved in finances and wants to know everything about what the husband earns and whatever. Says, no, give your husband financial trust. Trust him when it comes to his finances. Don't be nitty-gritty. No, how much you spend on this? Why this? I want to see how much comes in, whatever. Because many males don't like that. They want to be trusted. she suggests. I'm not necessarily saying that's what you should be doing. What I'm trying to say is sometimes influence from movies, influence from people that we know, shape who we are and what kind of preparation we should be having for marriage. And inshallah, through this discussion, through the case studies or the examples that the brothers have thought about, we can continue this discussion inshallah ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
Thank you so much, Sheikh, for those insightful points. I'm sure everyone is taking something from them. We're going to move into our interactive portion of tonight's workshop. Our volunteers will be giving out papers. I request you all to get into groups of 7 or 8 guys and 7 or 8 sisters, please. If you guys can just make a circle with 7 or 8 members. The volunteers will be passing out papers, and on those papers are 6 scenarios. Each group will be discussing one scenario among them. That scenario has been starred and boxed to know which one is your particular group's. And we'll first discuss this, and then Sheikh will come back and we'll have a discussion on these particular points and then go from there. So if I can request you all to please stand up, get into groups of 7 or 8, and volunteers will be passing out the papers.
No, not cold. So just to remind the brothers and sisters, you have about 10 minutes, 10 minutes to discuss these case studies. Please write down how you would deal with them. And we will gonna ask brothers and sisters to give us feedback as well. So you'll nominate one of you to give some comments, inshallah. Scenarios can differ. It's about understanding the nature of males and females. That's the thing. And once you understand the nature, and each person could be also different. So sometimes males and females differ in the way they expect things. As in marriage, people tend to learn. Some learn quicker than others. But it's about learning how men and women are different. There are some books out there. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus is one of them. Tells you how the brain of the male is different to the brain of the female. And the more you learn about that one, the more then you'll be able to put your own situations in your own scenarios in your own way to deal with them. Yeah. Exactly. There's other books. There's other lectures. Like I said, I've given a lecture. Have a look at that if you can. In YouTube, yes. What men want women to know. Yes. Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you. Good to see you. Thank you. it's fine. I mean, what's the time frame for this?
10:15 we'll start discussion.
Yes.
So by 10:15 we'll start first scenario. So it'll take us an hour to get through all six.
Yeah.
So by 11:15 we wrap up.
Yeah.
The last scenario will take like 5 to 7 minutes, whether we need to wrap up.
Yeah, yeah.
Ziyara and then
Okay. No problem. Inshallah. Yeah.
So he's also going to put every scenario on the pages, but on your screens, he's going to put a 10-minute timer if you want to.
Please, please.
So I've told them put a 10-minute timer
Yeah.
every scenario that we discuss, and then it's going to reset every time.
Excellent.
Yeah?
Okay.
Inshallah. No, that's it. Send.
We kind of forgot to put numbers on these. So when you introduce the first one, maybe just like introduce the first line so
Yeah.
the group knows that we're talking about that. Maybe group one will think it's something interesting.
We'll ask the kind of small groups to mention what they discussed, for example, and whoever dealt, I think you were all given one scenario? Yes? Okay. So the first one, it's about the individual who shares everything with close friends, like personal struggles, frustrations, even private conflicts, and the impact on that in marriage. So, sisters, which group did that? Nobody? You did. Are you able to share some thoughts? So the question here is, how can this person safely process their emotions outside of marriage while protecting their spouse's privacy and maintaining healthy boundaries? And when they want to help or get external help, how can they identify them, etc.?
Sorry, we're going with question 1.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. So our group, honestly, this was quite
If we
difficult
can get
for us.
everyone, please, to focus. Thank you so much. Yes.
We found this question quite difficult because most of us were saying that You should go to your parents, you should go to your friends. But obviously, when you're starting a relationship, your primary person you speak to should be your spouse. So some ideas we suggested were journaling. If you're someone who needs to get your emotions out somewhere, try and release it in a form where you don't have to communicate with someone else. Journaling and then speaking to God. Obviously, that could be another point of communication. But then at the core, you should speak to your spouse and tell them the issues you are having. Try and communicate multiple times. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think these are very good suggestions to make sure that there is at least some form of channeling of the frustration. But what happens if people start opening up, as this person, he or she does usually before marriage, to others? What's the result that's going to happen to this particular marriage? There's going to be trust issues, but more importantly, there's going to be, first of all, an exposure of private matters which is Islamically wrong and is going to be detrimental to the health of marriage. And usually parents are involved, especially the mother. The mother is usually the go-to for many sisters. For brothers, it could be, or usually is friends, from experience. And it is so pivotal that that we all understand that in the marital relationship between husband and wife is sacred. What happens inside the house should remain within the four walls. I remember His Eminence Ayatollah Stani mentioning this a few years ago in a private gathering. He said too many times dirty laundry is being, I'm paraphrasing, but somehow being put out for people to see. And what that actually does is it damages the reputation of people in society, and there's going to be a lot of gossip. What we recommend in preparation for marriage, sisters and brothers, is to study and to understand there is a difference between what's known as adult mode and child mode. Anyone come across these terms before? Yes? Now, adult mode and child mode essentially means that when we are living with our parents, we're in child mode usually. The moment you move out and you live with your partner in marriage, you're supposed to develop into adult mode. Now, child mode is basically you take instructions from your parents, you just do whatever they say, okay? An adult is now responsible and an adult is independent. He or she will respect his parents, but doesn't necessarily have to do everything that they say. And so there needs to be maturity in the sense of, okay, now if I have a problem, I don't rush back to my mom or dad and ask them to solve a problem. I need to seek and understand how to navigate through challenges in life by finding tools and having difficult conversations with my partner the way I should do, because that is not going to be a solution. And one of the problems in marriages in this day and age is parental interference. Do you know what the reason for parental interference is? Their own sons or daughter, getting them involved in marriage too much. Giving them too much information. In marriage, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your parents have the best opinion of your husband or wife. That's what you want to do. But unfortunately, what happens is, because of conflicts, you start giving them information, and then the image they have of their son-in-law or daughter-in-law is what? Is negative. So who do you think they're going to side? And is that going to help you going forward in your marriage? No. It's going to actually make life much harder. Because out there, reputation and first impressions count. And so if you are going to depict a negative image, so you've got to process the challenges as much as possible independently. Now, what happens? Where's the point where you need to get external help? Anyone? So you've tried, but it's getting nowhere, and there are loads of problems. When do you decide that you have to get somebody involved? Yeah. Yeah. So there's a pattern to the behavior. You have looked at as much as possible yourself, because many times when there is a problem, people blame the other. But we have to start with ourselves. Am I understanding my wife? Am I understanding my husband? Is there any way I can make a change so that this problem doesn't take place? But ultimately, there are situations where you need to involve others in mediation, and that's not a problem, but it shouldn't be parents. Shouldn't be parents. I'll be honest with you. Because chances are they will take sides. It should be mediators or scholars or individuals out there who are impartial. If you really can't find a way, a solution, I'll give you an example. One of the scholars said to me this story. He said the couple came to him and they were having fights over naming their son. So they've had a son, he wants something, she wants something. So they can't decide on the name. So they said to him, Maulana, Sheikh, you decide the name. So he's like, how do you want me to decide? If you both have different names, what am I supposed to choose? They're like, no, don't choose our names. Pick up the Quran, open it up, the first name that comes, you give it. So he was very smart. He said to them, I have to warn you, Fir'aun is mentioned 72 times. So, are you ready for this? They're like, let's see. So he takes the Quran, opens it. The first name that comes is Lut. They're like to him, it's okay, we'll manage our differences. We don't want the name. Poor Prophet Lut. There's nothing wrong with him, but his community are messed. So, the key thing here is to try and find a solution that somebody is not necessarily to somehow vested in one side or the other. Okay, brothers, the next one is the person who has all these habits: sleep, schedule, cleanliness, time management, that, these habits are very unpredictable. And they're now, in marriage, they affect not him only, they affect his or him or her, they affect the other. So who did this particular case study? Anybody? There was a very hesitant hand up like this. Why? Okay, may Allah bless the brothers who wrote these case studies, but they are quite tough. I understand. It's okay, try your best. So, the question is here, this inconsistent routine or emotional unpredictability, how can it affect the relationship? And which lifestyle habits are most important to address before marriage, do you think?
So there are several ways that a lack of paying attention to your personal habits can affect your relationship. We think the primary ways it can translate to a lack of respect for your potential spouse. And while that may not be your intention, it can also in turn relate to a lot of unnecessary conflicts and mental frustration. And while everyone will have different habits that they're obviously working on, no one is perfect, we decided that the primary step anyone should take when discussing with a potential spouse is ensuring your communication is open.
So it's a very good starting point. Communication is open. But how do we navigate the situation? I'll give you a scenario. That, for example, a wife wants to spend a Sunday with her husband, like it's a family day. And the husband is used to sleeping till 12 midday on Sundays because it's his day off. And says to her, you need to chillax. What is chillax? Chilling and relaxing combined, yes? So you need to take a chill pill because I need to rest. I work throughout the week and you do also, but she's disciplined. She wants to go out at 9 for a whole day, and he is sleeping till 12, for example. How to navigate the situation? Sisters, someone will say, just force him to wake up at 9. Yeah? Compromise means he wakes up at 10:30. Huh? Middle ground, okay. Okay, that's good. Brothers, any other solutions? I mean, these habits, you're going to have habits that are going to annoy each other. 100%. That's natural. You're going to have routines that the other finds so irritating. One couple told me, he said to me, my wife, when she chews the food, she makes noises. I want to die. It's like, I hate someone making noises. I don't know how to tell her. She'll get upset. She'll get really, really, really irritated. Oh, you don't love me. Because I make sounds when I eat. Yes, how do you navigate that?
I think it's supposed to be communicated in advance. If it's a day off, time off, we could chill and sleep. But the spouse on the men's side also need to make sure they compensate that time back and spend quality time with their spouse.
Absolutely. So that's a very wonderful point, that if the individual can't wake up before 12, that's how it is. They need to appreciate and be empathetic to the needs of spending a day. So it says, okay, you know what? Saturday maybe I'll make sure that is. So it is about, as much as possible, compromise. But having those difficult conversations is going to be an art in marriage. So what usually happens, I'll tell you, what usually happens is that people use the wrong time and the wrong words to communicate these things. For example, they say, you never care about my feelings. You never do this. And they use these terms which are wrong. Never, always. But it's never, never. And it's not always. Sometimes. Do you agree? So the timing is also important. Stroke then strike, you know. Sometimes you need to be soft, and you need to communicate in the right manner, use the right words, soften an individual, say this and the other, as much as possible. But also expect this, as time progresses in marriage, the first few years are always the hardest, because you're getting to know each other's habits, and you've got to be patient, as long as the habits are not haram. Because if they're haram, then that's a different situation. If the habits are wrong, if an individual listens to music, haram music, or watches things they're not supposed to watch, that is where it's much more concerning, and it shouldn't be looked, ignored. There should be good conversations taking place as far as, listen, this is not healthy for you, I care about you, it's best for you. Ultimately, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is advice. Nobody is allowed to force anyone except a husband has some rights over his wife, and the wife has rights over the husband. For example, if a female decides in marriage that she wants to put on crazy amount or any form of makeup when she goes out, which is haram, makeup that draws attention, quite clear, for example, the husband says to her, please, she says, I used to do it before marriage, you're not going to stop me. That's how I want to feel confident the way I am. Husband says, please, that's not, I don't like it. Or she has a lot of these friends on Instagram who are male, and she communicates, and the husband feels really, really irritated because he feels threatened, understandably. And he says to her, look, I don't want you to do that, but she keeps doing it. For example, she goes out. The husband can, in theory, exercise his right in Islamic law where he does not allow his wife to leave the house. He cannot say to her, he can advise her and say, you shouldn't be putting makeup, but he cannot force her to do that. But he can say, you can't leave the house until you, for example, don't put this makeup. For example, yes? So there are ways, but these are really the last resort, the last thing. There should be effective communication based on love and advice. But you see, that's where the compatibility comes in, because if there's that element of love and fear of God, that always goes back to that. Because if there isn't, that's where the problem lies. I'm not talking about disagreements over the color of the sofa or what should we paint or what car should we get. That's personal tastes. There has to be the element of flexibility. Sisters and brothers, I give you a tip. Some people ask me often, I'm looking for someone for marriage. What's the number one quality I should be looking that they should have? And often you get this general, the members disappeared, this general stuff mentioned in the member. They need to have akhlaq and iman. Do you agree? They always say, iman, akhlaq, iman, akhlaq. what I'm going to say is different. It's a product of Iman and Akhlaq, and that's flexibility. Don't marry a stubborn person. Stubborn person in what sense? Not stubborn that they will pray or wear hijab. No, not in that Islam wajib. But stubborn in the sense that either my way or the highway. Stubborn in the sense that, you know what, it is what it is, it's me. No, they're soft disposition. They're always willing to work around whatever they can. They're looking to improve themselves. They're not rigid. They're not hard-hearted. And they say, whatever I say goes, for example. That makes life hell as marriage, in a marriage couple. Yes? And I know that's a separate discussion. How do you find out if somebody's flexible? And I can tell you, when you meet them, the answer is not by asking them, excuse me, are you rigid? Are you hard-hearted? Or are you flexible? Yes, that's not the way, but that can be discussed in another session, inshallah. Okay, back to the sisters. This particular scenario regarding spirituality and Quran, prayer, in marriage, spiritual habits influence more than personal practice. Who's done this one? Yes, thank you. Can you let us know? So, in marriage, by the way, does everyone have all the scenarios, or they can see them? Or, yeah? Do I need to mention the scenario in detail, or, yeah? Okay, so in marriage, you find that the tone of the household, the decision made together as a couple regarding spirituality. So, the connection to Allah before marriage, how is that going to impact? And can you really rely on a spouse to motivate faith? Is that risky? What do you think about that?
Our general consensus was that it is very risky to rely on your partner for spirituality. One, there's no guarantee that your spouse will meet your needs. Two, if one person is consistent and then that person has to take on the responsibility of encouraging the other person, then the recipient will start to see like prayer, for example, as a chore because they're constantly being nagged to do it. So it takes away from the genuine aspect of the act. Another thing we talked about is if both are inconsistent, whether in waves or going in, then both will become very comfortable in staying in that position and no one will have spiritual growth. And lastly, we agreed that it's important to have a spiritual connection with Allah going in because you want someone who has taqwa when they become your life partner.
Thank you very much for that. So you know, one of the issues that people have is there are different places when it comes to their connection to Allah when they come to marriage. So you have some who feel more spiritual than their partner, for example. And one of the things they say is, I want to find someone who is kind of in the same place as I am when we go on a journey together. Very much unrealistic because it is very much personal. It's where you find yourself, yes? And so here's a scenario. If in marriage you find that, for example, your partner is completely different in the way that they look at spirituality. For example, they may not pray Salatul Layl and you pray Namaz Asha. What's the best way to navigate through that? Yes, it's the same brother answering all the questions. Yes. Any others? Yes, brother. Yes, you. Sorry? You wake up earlier. Okay. No. So, for example, your partner prays Salatul Layl. Yeah. You go ahead.
No, so for example, you wake up earlier based on your rapid eye movement, your REM cycle.
Oh, REM cycle.
So
okay.
It's 1.5 hours, right? So if your salah is at 5, it's like 6 o'clock, so you go back by 1.5, so you know what time to sleep at.
Yeah, how's that related to the question? I'm asking.
No, but
if your wife, let's say your wife does Salatul Layl. No, let's say you do Salatul Layl and your wife doesn't do Salatul Layl. How do you navigate this? Is this okay in marriage? Are you okay with that? Or do you ask her to perform Salatul Layl? Or that's my question.
So you agreed to sleep at the same time, which is based on the REM cycle.
So you're very adamant on the REM cycle.
That's a solution.
It's a solution. So you're saying that you should also wake up when you wake up.
Yeah.
Oh. So basically, you get her to wake up after the few REM cycles. So you basically have a REM cycle, then you wake her up and say, listen, honey, it's the REM cycle time. Is that the best way? Okay. Yes, sister, yes, yes. Uh-huh. Yes. So it's a wonderful way of looking at it, that each and every individual has their own journey. And I think sometimes we feel that my journey is the right way and my partner should have the same journey. In essence, you're right, but sometimes it's also good that we share activities that we both feel are good, that helps us understand our faith and God. For example, reading a book together or discussing a podcast or a lecture together, for example, doesn't need the REM cycle waking up. It's something that is a shared activity. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. For example, praying Salatul Jama'ah together. A lot of couples don't do that for some reason. Why? I don't know. But it's good. The husband leads, the wife behind. And it's a good model for children to look at as well. From a young age, a baby looks at the father and the mother praying together. That unit is established, yes, at home. That spiritual atmosphere, at the very least, yes. There are couples out there that, for example, one of them doesn't like going ziyarah, doesn't like going umrah, wants to go on the vacations to Dubai and all these things. And the other one says, no, I want to, for example. That becomes a challenge, because as you go together, there needs to be some understanding. Okay, I will compromise. We'll do this one year, we'll do that the other year. But personal habits, yes. Personal habits, each individual should give each other space. And you know what happens? If it is making a difference to our lives positively, the other will be inspired. Because they'll say, you know what? I've seen you because you prayed namaz al-shab, your behavior is like this. So maybe I should do it as well. This is on mustahabbat, by the way, not on the wajib acts. Recommended things that increase our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without a shadow of a doubt, should be supported and they should be advised, but I don't encourage the forcing. Although you will see riwayat that say, if a wife sprinkles water on her husband to wake him up, and a husband sprinkles. Why I say sprinkles? Because one of the respected colleagues, a really good friend of mine on Twitter, he's popular on Twitter, he's a scholar, he wrote, if a wife pours water. And I said to him, that's not good for marriage. Yani pouring water on your husband to wake him up for salah, I think is going to cause a lot of conflict. Sprinkle. Yes, the riwayah says sprinkle. And the same for the husband. And by the way, only if they allow it. Fiqh ruling. You are not allowed to wake up your husband or wife. I know here the brothers and sisters are not married, but in the future, you're not allowed to wake them up without their permission. You can't say, oh, I just want to wake you up. Sorry, did I ask you to? I don't want you to wake me up. So you're not allowed to, but I think that's an interesting one. Okay, next, I think we come to the brothers. This is a case regarding a person who sees a pattern. When they feel criticized, even gently, they shut down or become defensive. And they, when they get feedback, because they take things personally. This tendency they have, do they ignore it in marriage or before marriage? And how would it look like? What realistic steps should they take to develop this before marriage, or to develop emotional maturity before marriage? Who did this one? Who did this one, brothers? Yes, Bismillah.
So the first question was, do they ignore this tendency? And so they should begin actively working on it. The next question was, what does emotional maturity look like in a married relationship? So our group wrote, listening to feedback without becoming defensive, taking responsibility instead of like the blame, being calm during disagreements. I guess understanding your spouse's emotions, like at the end of the day. And then like being able to say, sorry, I was wrong, and things like that. The next thing was, what is realistic steps a person can take? So we said like reflecting on like your own personal triggers, and then also like seeking like you said earlier, you have like workshops and courses for pre-married, like before you get married, so things like that, like with scholars. And then we also said like taking accountability of like your own actions and reflecting on what you do yourself.
Yes, thank you so much. So I think, what I would add to that is, at this stage, if you find feedback to be difficult before marriage, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, إِذَا خِفْتَ فِي شَيْءٍ فَقَعْ فِيهِ. If you're fearful of something, fall into it. There's no magic pill here. You have got to be ready for criticism and to be able to look at yourself. So ask feedback. How many times you've been for ziyarah or trip, or even your own family trip, now vacations? Have you asked your siblings or parents, how was I in this vacation? Be ready for some harsh words. You were annoying, you were too this, it's okay. I was looking at tips to make an individual more patient. Sometimes we have to put ourselves in difficult situations to train ourselves. So for example, in your grocery store, if you're buying something, it is said that one of the good ways to practice patience is to choose a line that is longer. We always go for the line that is, choose a line that's longer so that you are holding yourself, you are stretching that muscle within. So sometimes you need to ask for feedback and then ask yourself, do I interrupt? Am I, somebody who becomes angry, defensive the moment that I'm told about something? Or do I take what Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Rahim Allah imran ahda ilayya ayubi. May Allah's mercy be upon the individual who gifts me my faults. So it's a gift, Imam Sadiq says. And a believer is the mirror of each other, right? So how many of us are willing for that constructive criticism to come? But we must, at the same time as be willing, we must also know the art of giving feedback. Because sometimes the words we use, the style we use could be really damaging. Or the time that we choose as well, that we give feedback to others, could really be detrimental. So it works both ways. That is part of personal development and certainly emotional intelligence that's needed. Okay, sisters, the last one that we need you to go through, and that is an individual who, when upset, tends to go quiet for hours and days until they feel normal again. It's their coping mechanism. Who did that one? Yeah? So can you tell us, how can this person begin learning healthier ways to communicate? And is there a right style of communication? Can silence ever be good, constructive?
So we were saying that there's not necessarily a correct way to communicate, but it has to be a healthy way that compromises and fits each person's individual style. So in this situation, we were saying, as the person who tends to essentially shut off, you should try to work with your feelings and understand what's making you uncomfortable to speak in this moment. Do you just need more time? Or do you like to write down your feelings? Do you need to be in a certain type of situation? Do you need to have just eaten? Like whatever it may be, know what kind of situation you need to feel comfortable. And we were saying, as the other side, that person should also be understanding. But the best compromise is that if you think you need a lot of time to think about a problem, you need to also give your partner some kind of realistic timeline. You can't just indefinitely say, I'll think about it for weeks or days or months or whatever it may be. There has to be some kind of compromise that, okay, give me 48 hours and we'll have a discussion about this, because that prevents your partner from overthinking and not understanding why you're upset.
Okay. Very good. So, how would you treat, when an individual does tend to kind of cocoon themselves when they get upset? What are the practical tips for them to try and deal with now before marriage? How could they deal with this situation? Is it okay? Not okay? You'll be surprised that actually science has shown this is primarily the male's coping mechanism. Men tend to want to avoid conflict, so they tend to withdraw much more than females. Much, much, much more. And they'll process things internally, even if they're extroverts. So sometimes extroverts like to talk about it, because a lot of the times introverts tend to process things internally, but men tend to want to deal with their issues quietly. Yeah, if there is something that's actually hurting them. What happens sometimes, though, is when they are silent, that is a destructive behavior for their partner, because their partner believes or starts to see that they are not only not communicating or not necessarily saying much, but they perceive their withdrawal as a ignoring of their empathy, their needs and their empathy to be communicated with. Yeah. So it is not a healthy thing to practice a lot, but sometimes females also need to know that that is the male's coping mechanism. And they need to be supported to open up as much as possible and given a safety that it's okay. And it's not going to be necessarily a matter of either I'm wrong or you're wrong. Well, let's discuss. Let's try and find what's the issue. What is it that's caused you to be in that state where you have completely become recluse, or you have withdrawn yourself, that you don't want to open up, so to speak. Now, the words we use in the communication, a lot of the times the word communication is being centered. And yes, we need to train ourselves in effective communication skills. But I think one tool that I'd like to share with you that we do emphasize in our marriage courses that we run is effective listening. Too many times people are not good listeners. Too many times people listen to reply, not listen to understand. And once again, I'm sorry to throw in a plug for this, but I have an entire majlis, or I did in Muharram a few years ago, which is effective listening. 1 hour on tools of how do I become a good listener. And a very good quality of a husband or a wife is that they know how to listen. Most of us don't know how to listen. Listening is not just passive, yes? It is a lot of processing of words and a lot of responding, a lot of affirmation that comes with it as well. I understand you, I get you. Just to be clear, do you feel this? It's a lot of the times reflecting how you feel. So I understand from you this, rather than saying you are this and you are this, which many times in conflict causes a lot of challenges, because people feel threatened and therefore they have to answer back, right? So I would advise sisters and brothers to work on their listening skills before marriage as much as possible, okay? And one tool that we often give to couples that you may use later on in life, inshallah, is called the listening tool. Listening tool essentially means, and you can try it now with anyone that you may have a good relationship with, a friend, brother or sister, parents, if they're up for it. Essentially, you sit with each other and one person speaks for 5 minutes and the other doesn't say anything, but listens attentively and doesn't do another activity or whatever, and pays attention to what's being said. Many times we interrupt. Many times we want to find a solution, but you said this, but that. That listening to helps. It really is very therapeutic. It's very useful to present information, but also when you see the other side is understanding and affirming what you're saying, it's reassuring as well. Okay? Right. The final case or situation brothers is the individuals carry idealized picture of marriage shaped by social media, TV shows, or friends. When reflecting honestly, it becomes clear that they themselves do not always show the same understanding, patience, or consistency. How can this person adjust their expectation to be fair and realistic? So, more about what marriage is about realistically. Which group did this? Yes. What are your thoughts on this?
Face value. Like personalities could be projecting ideologies which the masses might not be privy to because they're not academics per se. So they could be pushing the ideas of feminism and masculinity in such a manner that they present this idea of like a false dichotomy of marriage or masculinity or whatever. So almost like a self-reflective nature should be built within a person to be able to criticize that information and understand that anything that he sees through social media is just as it is, like an act. And in terms of other aspect is making a close circle of friends so that he can balance out what is idealized versus what is realistic, so that he has an understanding of like what is actually marriage all about. And also keeping in mind that the same solutions that his friends or family members might have will not apply to him as a person. So he needs to understand that those values exist within humans intrinsically, and to cooperate and communicate with their partner as a human being.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think in addition to what's been said, what's important is we appreciate and measure our expectations, because people approach marriage with some crazy expectations, number one. Number two, the influence of these short reels that I see, I get so many of them on my Instagram, of couples, making jokes about marriage or, these kind of situations. And they are subliminally sending a message about what marriage is about and the issues and the difference between males and females. And be careful about, watching too many of those, because it kind of shapes the way you look at how marriage should be. Sadly, it does. We don't have much discussions going on between people about the values that should be upheld in marriage, and looking at that from the lens of Islam. So for sure, training, reading, listening to lectures, podcasts, discussions about Islamic values and Islamic instructions of how a husband and wife should be dealing with each other, much better than basing it on maybe culture even. I'll give you an example. This is also slightly controversial. But many of the sisters find it difficult to initiate a potential meetup with a brother. Or if they're interested in someone, to get someone to contact them or to contact them directly and say, listen, can we talk for a potential, let parents know, but can we talk for potential marriage? Is that true? Because the culture says he has to knock the door. You can't do it. It's not good. You will look too desperate. Interestingly though, Khadija we all know, but the mother of the Prophet, Amina bint Wahab radwanullahi ta'ala alayha, her parents went to Abdul Muttalib and said, we want our daughter to marry your son Abdullah. 7th century Arabia. Much more difficult than now. So, I know parents will not agree, and I know this is sensitive, but sometimes, culture does restrict, and many a times we need to, within Islamic boundaries and direction from ulama, be able to navigate through some of the cultural challenges, but it is important to do that. Okay, so I just want to wrap up maybe with a few practical tips to help us in this particular path. Number one, sisters and brothers, to get ready personally, to be at the right mindset, to train ourselves for emotional intelligence for marriage needs Allah's help. So the first thing is always ask Allah. Dua should always be first. Don't underestimate the power of dua and seeking a wasila of Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam. Meaning that you can never achieve that without their help, without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wasila of the Ahlul Bayt, for example. An example of this is to recite chapter 25, verse 74. This ayah is powerful. It's amongst one of the most powerful verses that talk about the perspective and the potential for marriage. And it was beloved to Imam Ali alayhi salam. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. What does it say? It says the chosen servants of the merciful, Ibadur Rahman, the compassionate, they supplicate to Allah and they say amongst their supplication, give me a spouse and a progeny that will make me proud or will be the apple of my eyes and make me leaders of the God-wary. So make me the best. Okay? Make me. No, notice it's about self-building. It's about the character building. Yes? Make me. Give me the strength. Yes? وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Second, if it's possible at all, I would encourage we have our own emotional intelligence indicators. So look it up online or even search it or do it yourself. And that is, can I have my own personal goals set and reviewed on a regular basis? The behaviors that we just talked about, anger, frustration, anxiety. Another example is forgiveness. So can you forgive? Are you generous? A nice line I saw is that marriage is the union of two forgivers. Has to be. Because we all make mistakes. We all have days off. Yes? Are you too stubborn? Are you going to forgive people? Work on that. Test yourself. See if you are ready to do that. And the other tip I would give as well is take on responsibility. Volunteer. Challenge yourself in difficult situations, because the more you are in these kind of situations, the more you are flexible to deal with them in marriage. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give us tawfiq and success. Finally, if there are any questions on anything that was said or any comments, then the opportunity is there. Yes, please. I'm sorry, I can't hear it. Can you say it with the mic?
Can you repeat the quote that you said earlier about fears and how you have to dive into them? I just wanted to.
Yeah, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, if you fear something, fall into it. So go and do it. And that essentially is the training of the nafs, training of the soul, because many times we run away from that which we fear. And the more you confront it in a wise way, not necessarily, wild way, gradually sometimes, but many a times it is very productive, because you're going to now be more used to it and become habitual about it, because maybe you feared it for reasons which are not necessarily existing. So Imam Ali Salam encourages us to actually go ahead, trying our best to do it if there's something we fear. Yes.
So I had a question, right? When it comes to like expectations and stuff in general, I feel like one of the main reasons that marriage problems happen is that we don't give enough time, let's say culturally, for the two to understand each other in the engagement period. I feel like that period, let's say if it was longer, let's say for example, they were engaged for like 1 or 2 years, speaking to each other, and just those two not getting any influences from parents, because I feel like you said before, parents take sides. So I think, in my opinion, the engagement period, when they're honest and communicating in a halal manner, like let's say going to a coffee shop in public, sitting down, speaking, that can really help long term. I want to get your opinion. Don't you think that people should be more honest in that period, and leading forward it would be better?
I'm assuming, obviously, from your question, you're not yet married.
Oh, I'm 18. I'm not yet married.
Sorry?
I just turned 18.
You just turned 18,
Yeah,
mashallah.
Thank you.
So please come and see me later when you have the engagement period, and you'll know that it's not a good idea to have a long engagement period. Why? Because I know in the Khoja community is a wonderful model that I'm a big supporter, but unfortunately as an Iraqi, my community rejects it. This idea, first of all, by the way, we don't have any concept of engagement in Islam other than nikah. Oh, Maulana, there are situations, Allahu Akbar, I'm shocked. Some communities, I don't know if it happens in this community or others, but they get engaged without nikah, and they've got this ceremony where he puts the ring. What's going on? Yeah, but this is a Western engagement. There's no such thing. There is, if you do get that Western engagement, you're still non-mahram to each other, just like normal. Just like normal. Oh, but she's my fiancé. No such thing in Islamic law. Yes? The only way she becomes your fiancé is you've got to do either a temporary or a permanent contract. And that's what it is. Okay? Now, I know in many Khoja communities, they do this and it's very well accepted. Alhamdulillah, it's a good thing that they do this temporary marriage with restrictions, and a year or 6 months or whatever, they get to know each other and so on. And then finally there's the nikah, and then the next day there's a reception. Other communities don't do this. They frown upon the Pakistani community, Iraqi community, Afghani community. All these communities, majority say absolute no-go for temporary marriage. And the reason why I think long engagement periods is bad is because usually there are restrictions as far as the physical relationship is concerned. They say, listen, you can see each other without hijab, touch, hands, but that's it. But the moment there is a strong feeling that develops by going out and spending time, there is a need to have the physical relationship. That's an intrinsic need. You're gonna have to have that. And so you're gonna struggle for a while. If it's 2-3 years, God help you. It's not easy, you know. I remember coming to a narration that once there was somebody who came to Prophet Musa alayhi salam and said, Ya Kalim Allah, I saw a lady sitting next to a grave of her son crying, and I asked her, why are you crying? She said, he just died. I said, okay, so Allah takes souls. How old was he? 370 years old. So I said, okay, what happened? Why are you crying so much? She said, he still hasn't got married. Like 370 years without marriage, God help us. So if you could stay 2 years or 3 years in this kind of engagement, it's very, very difficult. It's extremely difficult because naturally you're drawn to each other. You want to be living with each other. And it comes with another challenge as well. You know, husband and wife each have duties and responsibilities. But in a way, it doesn't fall because you're still living with your parents. Your parents interfere, you're thinking this. The wife wants to do something and the husband says, I'm not really sure you should. And she's like, well, we're not yet living together, so you can't really tell me what to do. Or whatever, I want to do this. And he's like, yeah, but I'm your husband, Islamically. Yes, you are, but we're not living together. So it creates more potential for conflict because you're not really husband and wife. You are Islamically, but you're not yet. The rukhsati hasn't happened, so to speak. So you can see I'm on Khoja. Yes, just to practice gender equality, sisters. Any question? Nothing? Okay, brothers, yes.
The relationship with your significant other and
Sorry, your relationship?
How would one balance the relationship with your significant other as well as the respect of parents? Is there a hierarchy that comes into play?
It's a very, very important question, and one that creates a number of challenges in marriage because people say, shall I listen to my wife, or shall I listen to my mom? Shall I listen to my husband, or shall I listen to my dad? There's always this element of who should go first, right? And I don't think it should be like that. I think it's to do with the adult-child mode. I invite you to look up this and to read about this. It's a very effective tool. Essentially, when somebody's in adult mode, they can have an adult conversation with their parents and say, listen, There are these things, I respect you, I love you, I will never disrespect you, but these things now I have to consider, and I'm not going to necessarily do what you have said, in a nice way to say, right? So it's about navigating respect for both sides, but not undermining any one of them, because it's sensitive. I give you an example. The wife comes to the husband and says, I'm very upset with your dad because he, yesterday in our gathering, family gathering, looked at me and says, what's happened to you? You've gained a bit of weight. I don't like that. He said it in front of everyone. You know, I feel insulted. A husband who's in a child mode, who doesn't understand and hasn't been trained, hasn't looked at read books, will go to his dad and say, Dad, please, for God's sake, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be saying that about my wife. It's not nice. Wrong. It needs training. What's the right way to do it? Let's see if anyone knows. Sisters, what is the right way? Or are you thinking about the food that you've already set up in the back? Yes, brothers, any right way? Yes? Sorry? Acknowledge the feelings. Wow, the impact has already started. All right, amazing. You have a good future here, inshallah. Yes, but what else?
I feel like one way can be, like, for example, as a husband, take your wife, let's say, to the gym with you. Like, what I mean is, like, you know, some of us, right, as guys, we have this thing called the workout split, right?
You know, just sorry to stop you there.
No,
I'm very fascinated that this is the second answer that's completely not to do with the question, and I did it to the REM. This is the REM answer. You're influenced by the REM. Okay, sorry to stop you because our time, we've got 5 minutes. I'll just quickly mention the effective way to deal with the situation is to say to the wife, empathy, understanding this must be hard, whatever, but the wife has to go and speak with the father herself. You are not supposed to have a messenger. This messenger is disastrous. Now you go and speak to the mother. The other person goes to this. Creates a big tension, big fight. Hence, then you have to start choosing. But if you know what is the best way to do it, if she's really, she needs to be an adult. An adult conversation. He gets upset, no problem. That's life. At least she's made in a calm way. But listen, is it okay? And not in front of others. Is it okay that you don't mention this? Khalas, draw the boundaries. Set the limits. Needs to happen. Okay? You don't act messengers in marriages. Okay? So just be wary of that and navigating different kind of backgrounds and how it should be. But it's possible. I wouldn't advocate for one person to be made superior than the others. But the key thing is to make each other beloved to the other parents. That would really help as well. So I would advise you all, sisters and brothers, one of the things you should try and do when you get married, make it a priority to really work hard to make your mother-in-law and father-in-law love you. Go above and beyond. Spend nice gift for them, shower them with praise, tell them, amazing, you've brought up your daughter or son so well. Things like this, get on their good books. I know sometimes it's hard because some mothers and fathers there, when they lose their son or they think they're lost, their son-in-law or daughter-in-law because they're public enemy number one. And they take all the anger on them. And I've had so many cases like that. But be patient. Soon their hearts will soften and they'll accept. Okay, final question from the sisters or brothers. Yes.
I just wanted to kind of clarify on something you were saying during the lecture about when we were talking about like marital rape, and I was trying to understand, like, were you saying that it isn't a concept, or that, like, what were you trying to, what was the point you were making?
So in Islamic law, there are rights for the husband and there are rights for the wife, okay? So the wife, even like we said, she has a right over the husband that he has to spend on her as far as clothes, accommodation and food and drink to a reasonable level, acceptable level in society. But the husband has a couple of rights on his wife. One of them is that she mustn't leave the house without his permission. And secondly, he can have sexual relations with his wife whenever he wants to, except in certain times of the month, when she can't medically or when she's ill. Now, what I was trying to say is that the term marital rape is used loosely by the Western world, feminism, to mean that when the husband says to her, no, you have to, and she does it, but she doesn't really want to, yes? It's used to denote that kind of thing. Of course, physically forcing her is not right. Islam does not allow or does not support, although there are some narrations that says it's okay, but these narrations have to be taken contextually and not, literally. But generally speaking, Islam does not allow an individual to force his wife physically. But at the same time, it's haram for her to say no if there is no medical reason and she gets a sin. Is that clear? Yeah. May Allah subhanahu... Oh, there are loads of questions there. Brothers who are in charge, Shabir, what is the outcome? Because it's 11:15. Oh, okay. So we'll take them both together, so I answer them together, inshallah, and we'll end.
Yeah, so we were both raising our hand to get your attention, so it worked.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
So we had situation number 3, and what the sister said and your response kind of intrigued us. So we wanted to get your thoughts on our answer to kind of see if that works, because we took a more passive-aggressive stance on it, to see if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we answered it in 3 parts. The first one being the fact that the scenario is that you're relying on your spouse in terms of your iman to kind of bridge on that, but you're not really taking a step towards it. That's kind of the summary. So we said that marriage is half of your iman, and if you're walking into the marriage with not much iman, it's kind of like building a relationship or like a building on a shaky foundation. So that building is bound to be unstable for most of the time. And then if you're walking into a relationship expecting to bounce off of your partner's iman, but they're doing the same, 2 times 0 is 0 is what we wrote. So it's kind of tough if both of you are not taking that first step. And so you need to ensure that you're both taking that step so that you both have the 50% on each of your end, or trying to do your best to achieve that, because then 2 times 50 is 100 is what we wrote.
Are you a math student?
We came from accounting today, so...
Oh, you're accountant. Oh, okay.
And then the third part was some of the things that we should focus on, which is the main part that we wanted to get your thoughts on, which was that we all came up with the idea of the fact that
Sorry, for the first part, I understand what you're saying, but practically what does that mean in a marriage? So if somebody is in a different state or different place spiritually, how would you advise that they deal with it?
Yeah. So that's where number 3 comes in, which is kind of the practical steps of how to boost you and your partner's iman.
Okay.
So we all came up with the idea that we have spiritual highs and lows. Some days we barely want to do anything, and some days we want to, pray Salatul Layl and all the ziyarat and everything like that.
Correct.
So our solution was that both spouses should kind of, not REM cycle exactly, but in the fact that try and maximize when your spouse is on their spiritual high, because most of the time it won't align. But if you're on your spiritual high, make sure that you're not forcing your partner to do the same items as you, because they may be at a spiritual low, but maximize the spiritual highs. So we were talking about how the fact that exam season is coming up. So most of us are stressed. And so most of the time when we're done studying, we're like, Allah, I'm cooked. Can you help me? So that's us taking our stress and kind of getting closer to Allah. So similarly, applying that in a marriage perspective, it's like if there's some things not going right or some things that are going wrong, we can turn towards Allah together, kind of increasing our spirituality on both ends. So that's kind of what we decided from this scenario. So we want to
it's not bad at all, because remember, compatibility is also something which is quite loosely used. But many a times people, when they look to marry somebody, they may have these aligned values and they may share these kind of experiences together at the beginning or discuss it together. But for sure, I think we have to support each other in the highs and the lows. I think that's what makes marriage so beautiful, or makes it sustained. If an individual is constantly demanding that they are treated in a particular way all the time, then this is not going to work. So I think yes, but I think the essence is the same, that we said, each person has their individual path. They shouldn't be forcing it, but the other person should be understanding as much as possible, understanding that it's okay that they're in a different place. And it shouldn't also result in people being arrogant over the other. I know more about Islam. I'm closer to Allah than you, then I am in a better state than you, for example. That shouldn't be, because each person is a potential, right? We should be tools to help each other in a kind, gentle way, rather than in an arrogant, self-centered way, for sure. Sorry, this final question at the back, and then we'll have to wrap up, I'm told.
So I just had a question going on what you were saying before, and the point you made about how you see a lot of times in your work that it ends up being like boys marrying girls as opposed to like men marrying women. And don't you think that like a factor of that is that we as a community have a culture where men can't interact with women and boys can't interact with girls? So you end up just putting a bunch of like people in their early 20s together and getting them married, and then like isn't it inevitable that they're gonna have problems if you restrict them from talking? Like even this discussion, we're talking like from like a wall over, like a voice over the wall, as opposed to an
Berlin
actual
Wall, yeah.
I'll put like a...
Yeah, I understand. But of course, we have to subscribe to follow Islamic teachings and prevent potential challenges. But in this day and age, I think most people have an opportunity to interact with the other gender at school, college, university, the campuses. And we have to be careful as well how that interaction takes place, because remember, the interactions that take place in Islam that are allowed are based on formal ones that do not involve flirting or lustful thoughts or intentions or unnecessary conversations. So I think ultimately Islam looks at this from a holistic, healthy perspective. So free mixing events and stuff like this are not necessarily going to guarantee. In fact, the Western liberal model has failed. This idea of people dating and having boyfriend, girlfriends for so many years and so on, it's producing so many failed marriages. Divorce rates in the Western world are so high at the moment. So what we've got to do is, within the boundaries of Sharia, which does allow interactions, which does allow conversations that take place in a controlled environment, be able to have that understanding about what makes a male and makes a female, and read about it and become equipped and educated about it. That definitely helps. And you look at the example of our parents and people before that, alhamdulillah, they didn't necessarily fail, majority of them. Yes, there are examples, of course, in every society, but they were able to navigate through that, through experience, through learning, through discussion. And they have their own challenges, of course, but I think it's possible to do that with the boundaries of Sharia law, for sure. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. From me, it's a thank you to the youth committee and the Mu'mineen sisters and brothers for attending. Apologies if I went on for too long. I hope inshallah it's beneficial for all of us, and I hope inshallah you can take this conversation further, meaning you make your own personal goal to prepare yourself emotionally, intellectually, physically, inshallah, for this beautiful journey which is marriage, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Hilli, for your thoughtful insights on this topic. And thank you everyone for having these raw, sincere discussions with us tonight. Just before we close, the Board of Directors and the Marriage Committee of ISIJ would like to share a short message for the youth of the community. Many young adults in our community face real challenges when it comes to finding a suitable spouse. The question is, how can we as a community help bridge these gaps and better support the journey towards marriage? The ISIJ Marriage Strategy Team, an initiative of the Board of Directors, is seeking genuine insights from our community to better understand what young adults experience when searching for a spouse. Your voice matters. This detailed survey, created in collaboration with researchers, psychotherapists, and community leaders, will help shape meaningful initiatives that support you and others on their path towards marriage. The survey is completely anonymous, it's completely confidential, and we encourage you to share openly your experiences, challenges, and ideas so that we can build programs that truly reflect your needs. We request you all to please take a few minutes to share your perspectives and make a meaningful difference in the future of our community. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you'll get access to the survey, and we kindly request you just a couple minutes of time to fill out the survey so that we can make a real difference in the community.
I encourage the sister brothers to take part in this as well. I think the more information the community has, the committee has, the better to, inshallah, facilitate services for you. So be as honest as you can. Please do take part, fill this in, and the information is going to help you to be able to have these programs and events and workshops to serve you, inshallah, for sure.
Sheikh Ali, once again, on behalf of Jaffari Islamic Youth and the youth of the community, we would like to extend our gratitude for spending your time with us tonight. I know it's been a long night, but I'm sure we all gained some very insightful knowledge. Can we please get one loud salawat?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Tabarruk will be served at the back, and if I can kindly request everyone, when you stand up, please just grab your papers, and on the way I'll just hand them to a volunteer. We'll end tonight with ziyarah.
متوجه الزيارة. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن وكعبة الإيمان وإمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.